Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie B and I read a lot of books. Today's book is called The End of the World House by Adrienne Celt. There is your front cover. It's nice and bright. That's kind of what attracted me to it, to be honest. So let's get in with that blurb for you and I'll tell you what I thought. Bertie and Kate have been best friends since high school. Bertie is a semi-failed cartoonist working for a prominent Silicon Valley tech firm. Her job depresses her, but not as much as the fact that Kate has recently decided to move from San Francisco to Los Angeles. When Bertie's attempts to make Kate's day fail, she suggests the next best thing, a trip to Paris that will hopefully distract the duo from their upcoming separation. The vacation is also a sort of last hurrah, coming during a ceasefire in a series of escalating world conflicts. When a mysterious stranger offers them a private tour of the Louvre, the women find themselves alone in the museum where nothing is quite as it seems. Caught up in a day that keeps repeating itself, the two are eventually separated, and Bertie is faced with a mystery that threatens to derail everything. Yes, this is 320 pages in contemporary fiction, crime and thriller, literary fiction and psychological fiction. I put it at kind of a dystopia as well, because the point is that kind of they can see the end of the world happening, so it is slightly dystopia as well. Where do I start? You see the whole thing from Bertie's point of view, and to be honest, I found the beginning a little bit long-winded. I felt like it took a little bit for me to really get into it, because you do just see the same day repeating a few times before Bertie actually realises what's happening. You are getting a lot of backstory in those 3 days that are repeated, because as well as realising that the day is repeating itself, and that the fact that the girls can't actually see that it's being repeated, like they don't get any sense of deja vu. It's only on like day 3 or 4 that Bertie actually realises that she's lived this before. Bertie is an interesting character to see it through, because you find out about an ex-boyfriend and how her memories are being manipulated slightly. It feels like a very interesting story in regards to how it plays with Bertie's memory and her friendship with Kate, and how it almost seems a little bit one-sided, because we do know that Kate is getting ready to move to Los Angeles and Bertie doesn't want her to, but Kate is there going, but this is where my life is taking me. And so Bertie's got a bit of an obsession with Kate that you see very prominently throughout the entire book. You realise that she does not want to be separated from her friend at all. But then that also takes you down to the relationship with her ex-boyfriend. There are like 3 clear parts to this story, and the first part is the Groundhog Day element. It starts off with her and Kate waking up in Paris, saying that they're going to the Louvre that day and they're going to have a private tour thanks to somebody that Kate met the night before. And so they turn up, they knock on the door a couple of times, taken in, and it's supposed to be like a private tour, but they're just left to their own devices. You don't actually meet the person that Kate and Bertie are supposed to be like given the tour by. They do just very much just have the museum to themselves. But it's interesting how each day the two of them feel very angry with each other, and you're trying to work out what is the source of this anger and why is it that they seem to want to apologise to each other, because you're never given in that first section, you're not really given a reason as to why they keep waking up so angry and how that affects the rest of their day. But it's at the end of the first section you realise that somebody is manipulating their timeline, and it's somebody that Bertie knows, and that kind of prompts you into kind of the rest of the book. And I'll admit, that person is not nice. And throughout the book, I was just there thinking, why does Bertie give this person the time of day? Because this person is manipulating and saying, I'll only do this for you if you do this for me. And it just seems like a very manipulative relationship, which is why I didn't like that part of the story. I understand why that's important, because it puts Bertie in a position in the second part of the story where she really establishes what it is in her life that she's enjoying and what she doesn't, and really establishing the relationship that she has with Kate, because she's forced to forget Kate in the second part of the story, and you realise that she can't forget Kate. And so it's seeing how that friendship inserts itself into her life in the second part of the story, even though that friendship and that timeline has been manipulated. It's very awkward to talk about because of the subject matter and how the story is told and how spoilery talking about that second section would be. But yeah, it was very interesting. Would I put it at one of my favourite books? Probably not. And I think it's just because of the relationship with the mystery person at the end of the first section and how that influences the rest of the story. I can understand the story it's trying to tell, but I just didn't think that this person deserved Bertie in any way, and that person was just very manipulative. And yeah, the title, End of the World House, comes back to a thing that Kate and Bertie want to do together. Like, as the world is crumbling around them, they want to go and find a house in the middle of nowhere, and they're going to call it the End of the World House, because it's just going to be the two of them. And even when Bertie's timeline has been manipulated even more in the second part of the story, and she is kind of forced to kind of forget the friendship that she has with Kate, Kate still enters her mind as Bertie realises what's happening, and the idea of the End of the World House also features in that second part because of how her mind is trying to comprehend what is happening. It's a baffling read. It's one of those things where you read it and just think, how do people come up with stuff like this? Credit to the author, because I've never read anything like this before. To be fair, I don't think have I read any other Groundhog Day type books before? I'm not sure if I have. I've seen films like this before, obviously with Groundhog Day, and I've seen other films that kind of use that repeated day element, but I don't think I've ever read it. And it is something that has to be done in a certain way without it becoming like boring and repetitive. Admittedly, this did feel a little bit boring in the beginning, mainly because we were getting so much backstory of trying to establish that friendship, but it did take just too many pages for Bertie to realise what was happening. Came to the point where it was just like, is this show repeating? Like, am I the only one that's clocked this? And yeah, there was a point where I was just thinking, is this supposed to be a Groundhog Day book? I can't even remember at this point. Is Bertie actually going to realise what's happening? Is Kate going to realise what's happening? Is anybody else going to figure out what's happening? It's just that moment at the end of the first part where Bertie and Kate get separated, and then someone from Bertie's past comes in, and you realise that he has been manipulating things the whole time, and he continues to manipulate that timeline throughout the book. It's baffling, but it was interesting, and actually once you got into it, I did actually kind of enjoy it. I just found it quite a slow burn. Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. It was a slow burn, but once I actually got into it, I did fairly enjoy the book. I just wasn't a fan of the relationship that Bertie had with that person from her past, and how that person was just manipulating her throughout the whole story. So I'm not sure if that was actually the point of it, because she gives this person too many like second, third, fourth chances, and I'm just like, babe, this person doesn't deserve a fourth chance. This person didn't even deserve a second chance, to be honest. As soon as she heard what that person was admitted to doing, she should have just told him to F off, basically. She should have just told him to F off, because I would be really creeped out by it, personally, and I think a lot of people would be really creeped out if somebody admitted to what this person did. Sounds interesting. If you do like those kind of books that look at like repeated days. Actually, I say that, I have read another book that does have that premise. It was a Kerry Hope Fletcher book. It was In a Time We Lost. I have done a video on that, so I'll pop it on mine somewhere. Interesting. Wasn't a big fan of that manipulative relationship, but it was a way to take her out of the first section and put her in a different situation, because the Groundhog Day doesn't happen throughout the entire book. I just say that. So End of the World House by Adrienne Celt. Here you go. It's a beautiful cover. The quote on the front of the book is, "Mystery, time travel and love at the end of the world. What more could you want?" And that was from Town and Country. That's where that quote came from. Yeah, beautiful cover. Such an interesting concept. There were parts of it I liked. It was just that relationship between Bertie and the person who comes out and just manipulates everything, that I was just there going, this is not a relationship worth saving. Whereas I felt that Bertie and Kate's friendship did seem like something worth saving, and seeing where that went was interesting. especially seeing how Bertie's obsessions affected her life throughout the book, while also popping them in this kind of dystopia setting. The world they're living in feels just very dystopian, even though it's a world that we kind of feel like we're living in at the moment. But obviously this book was released April 22, so it's not that old, but considering the fact that it's almost a year old, based on what's happening in the world at the moment, it does feel very current, even though it has that dystopia sense to it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you do have any book recommendations, just pop them in the comments. Very nice to see the new subscribers, thank you very much. And yeah, I'll see you next time in another video. Stay safe everybody, love you all, bye!